Welcome, everyone! Today we have a truly fascinating explainer lined up for you. We are going to explore a profoundly personal, deeply intellectual 30-year journey. We're looking at the reflections of an author who spent 3 entire decades wrestling with one of the most complex puzzles of human existence, the pursuit of the ideal human relationship. It's a journey that takes us all the way from the really ambitious idealism of youth to the grounded, hard-earned wisdom of a 79-year-old man reflecting on a lifetime of actual experience. It's this brilliant synthesis of philosophy, human nature, and personal growth. So, let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Is true harmony between people actually possible? It's the central philosophical mystery of this entire explainer. I mean, we look around the world, we look at nature, and what do we see? We see an endless evolutionary struggle. It's basically a constant arm wrestling match for dominance, for resources, for survival. So the big question becomes, can human beings, the supposedly wise and highly developed creatures that we are, actually rise above our natural instincts? Can we genuinely create a sustainable, harmonious system where there are literally no winners and no losers? To answer that, we really need to trace the author's intellectual evolution. We start way back in his youth, where, like a lot of us, he was endlessly searching for a perfect, ideal system for humanity. Then we move forward to a very specific checkpoint, the year 1998. At this point, the author firmly believed that human logic and education could definitively solve the ultimate puzzle of human conflict. And finally, we'll arrive at the year 2026, which represents his perspective at 79 years old, where that grand, sweeping vision of fixing the whole world totally transforms. It turns into the quiet, profound realization that the real work is just rebuilding oneself day after day. Let's trace how this builds, starting right at that 1998 mindset. Section 1. The 1998 Search for Harmony.
So, in 1998, the author was looking at the world through a lens of just profound optimism. I mean, sure, we were all worried about Y2K and sitting around waiting for our dial-up internet to finally connect, but he truly believed an external utopia, a completely perfect system of human interaction, was absolutely possible. The ultimate goal was this: a harmonious relationship without winners and losers. His perspective at the time assumed that, hey, because we are intelligent, rational beings, we could simply choose to transcend that evolutionary arm wrestling of nature. He basically believed that a world without ego and without exploitation was the logical conclusion of human development. The thinking was, if we just understood that conflict only produces losers, and often innocent ones at that, then surely wise people would naturally aspire to this perfect harmony. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how he mapped out the roadmap for this utopia. Step 1, early education, starting literally from birth, teaching children to overcome their differences. Step 2, cultivating empathy, developing the mental capability to genuinely see yourself on the other side of the divide. Step 3, logical analysis, just using our brains to understand that conflict is ultimately a massive net negative for everyone involved. And finally, Step 4, eliminating the ego entirely. He initially thought that if you just combine logic and education, you could successfully erase the human ego once and for all and establish lasting peace. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But as the author aged, life ended up teaching him a very, very different lesson. Section 2. The reality of human nature. A crucial shift in perspective. Fast forward almost 3 decades to the year 2026. The author is now 79 years old, and he experiences this massive paradigm shift. In 1998, remember, the goal was to completely erase the ego. But by 2026, the hard realization hits: you absolutely cannot erase it. You must manage it. The profound truth he accepts is that human nature just isn't inherently flawless. Impulses like taking, coveting, competing, they aren't glitches in our system. They are permanently baked right into our human DNA. The ego isn't some mistake that can just be educated away in a classroom. It's the fundamental operating system we are all born with. Therefore, the real task of humanity isn't to delete these impulses, but to figure out how to rise above them. So the absolutely crucial point here is how we frame our moral guidelines. The author looks at the 10 commandments, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, and he redefines them so brilliantly. He says they are not a checklist describing some perfect utopian human being. Instead, they are a roadmap for a human being in struggle. Think about it for a second. You literally don't need a rule against stealing if the desire to take what isn't yours doesn't actually exist in the first place. These commandments are acknowledging our inherent everyday flaws. They act as necessary guardrails and boundaries for a creature that is naturally, constantly pulled towards selfish desires. Section 3. The internal moral struggle.
This brings us to a really core revelation. The truest battleground for harmony isn't out there in the world trying to fix all of society. The truest battleground is right inside our own minds. Here we introduce this fascinating concept from Jewish tradition that the author leans on heavily, the Yetzer Hara, which is often translated as the evil inclination. But here's the twist. It is not an enemy to be destroyed. It is a daily test, and it's actually the raw material for your personal growth. The author points out something so insightful. Without this internal drive, the urge to acquire things, to desire, to achieve, a human being literally wouldn't build a house, wouldn't get married, wouldn't create a single thing. The drive itself isn't the problem at all. It's the direction we point it. Think of this struggle kind of like spiritual gravity. You cannot climb without gravity actively pulling you down. It's exactly like going to the gym. If there is absolutely no resistance on the barbell, your muscles are not going to grow. Wrestling with small, everyday temptations, like choosing not to answer someone in anger, choosing not to tell a convenient half-truth, choosing not to be jealous of a coworker's success, that acts as your resistance training. It builds up your moral muscle. So when a massive, life-altering crisis hits, you actually have the internal strength ready to handle it. You don't build that strength by living in a magical world without temptation. You build it by mastering the temptation.
This marks a complete and total shift from the macro to the micro. On the one hand, you have his youth, trying to fix the whole entire world and build an ideal system between all humans everywhere. But on the other hand, you have his older self, building an ideal system within oneself. He realizes that the ideal life isn't a life completely devoid of ego or inclination. It's a life where you actually learn to govern your ego rather than letting it govern you. The truest harmony is internal stability, not necessarily external peace.
Section 4, One True Friend. Let's look at the ultimate takeaway.
So where does this all leave us in terms of our actual relationships with other people? If world peace is just a naive 1998 dream, what does this 79-year-old author leave for the next generation? Well, he distills 79 years of hard living into one profound, incredibly beautiful realization. A person needs a true friend for its own sake. In Hebrew, the term for this is chaver lishma. True harmony doesn't actually require a massive global utopian system. It requires just one authentic connection. Just one person who wishes you well, not because of what they can extract or get from you, but simply because your well-being genuinely, truly matters to them. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it perfectly ties right back to defeating that internal struggle we just talked about. Think about the characteristics of a true friend for a second. There are no power struggles, no calculating profit and loss, no desperate need to win the argument, no comparison or jealousy. It's a safe space to just admit your weakness. Most of our daily moral failings, like coveting, lying, getting angry, they almost all come from comparing ourselves to others and trying to win the game of life. But when you find just one relationship completely devoid of ego, you effectively defeat the evil inclination entirely in that specific sacred space. You've managed to find a tiny pocket of true harmony in an otherwise totally chaotic world. To totally synthesize this lifetime of wisdom, the author leaves us with 3 highly practical, extremely actionable lessons directly derived from his journey. Number 1, don't expect perfection. Honestly, expecting absolute harmony from all of humanity is only going to breed resentment and disappointment. Number 2, invest in one true friend. You really don't need a massive network of acquaintances. One deep, egoless connection is literally enough to sustain your faith in humanity. And number 3, remember the struggle is internal. The real war isn't between you and society. It's between you and your own nature.
Once I thought I could help build an ideal world. Today, I know that I must first rebuild myself day after day. Wow. There is just so much intellectual humility right there. It is deeply emotional, and you can tell it's completely hard-earned. It takes an entire lifetime to realize that changing the world begins, and perhaps entirely ends, with the quiet, unglamorous daily work of mastering yourself. If you can just manage your own impulses and manage to be a truly loyal friend to just one single person, that is a life well lived. That is enough.
Which brings us to our final thought, and a question I really want to leave ringing in your ears as you go about the rest of your day. Have you found your one true friend? And are you winning your internal struggle today? The blueprint for a harmonious life isn't out there somewhere in the world. It's right in front of you, and it's right inside you. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the source material. Take these lessons, reflect on your own relationships, hit the gym for those moral muscles, and I will see you in the next explainer.